There is a procurement trend quietly unfolding across NATO defense ministries that most mainstream analysts are completely overlooking, and it centers on a category of military technology so specialized, so deeply technical, and so strategically consequential that governments are deliberately keeping the details out of public conversation. NATO member states, including some of the most powerful military forces in Europe, are turning to Israel, a nation of fewer than 10 million people, to supply them with electronic warfare systems that are now considered among the most capable ever developed for modern operational environments. These are not simple communication devices or basic radar tools. These are sophisticated, combat-proven platforms that have been refined through decades of real operational experience in some of the world's most complex and contested electromagnetic environments. The question worth asking is not simply what these systems do, but why NATO's most well-resourced militaries, with access to American and European defense contractors, are choosing Israeli technology above all other available options, and what that tells us about where the future of defense technology is genuinely headed. After decades in which conventional weapons platforms dominated defense budgets and strategic planning across NATO member states, a significant and largely undiscussed shift has been taking place inside the procurement offices of some of Europe's most powerful militaries, and it reflects a fundamental change in how modern defense planners understand the nature of contemporary security challenges. Countries including Germany, Poland, Italy, and Greece have been quietly allocating substantial portions of their defense modernization budgets toward electronic warfare capabilities developed and manufactured in Israel, sourcing systems that operate not in the physical domain of bullets and explosives, but in the invisible and highly contested domain of the electromagnetic spectrum, where radar signal travel, communications are transmitted, and the entire sensory infrastructure of a modern military force depends on uninterrupted functionality to remain operationally effective and survivable. Israel's rise to the top of the global electronic warfare industry is not the result of sudden investment or political ambition. It is the direct product of more than 5 decades of continuous operational necessity, during which Israeli defense engineers and military strategists were compelled to develop technological solutions to security challenges that no other nation faced with quite the same combination of urgency, complexity, and resource constraint. The Israeli Defense Forces operated in environments where adversaries possessed numerically superior forces, where hostile radar networks surrounded Israeli territory on multiple sides, and where the ability to survive and succeed depended entirely on technological superiority rather than sheer scale, which created a defense industrial culture that valued innovation, miniaturization, and real-world performance above all other metrics that defense procurement processes typically use to evaluate competing technology offerings from different manufacturers. The first category of Israeli electronic warfare technology that NATO countries have been integrating into their air forces involves advanced airborne jamming platforms developed by Israeli firms with decades of experience designing systems, specifically for contested airspace. Environments where sophisticated ground-based radar networks pose a constant and evolving threat to aircraft survivability and mission effectiveness. These airborne systems are designed to autonomously detect, classify, and respond to radar emissions across a wide range of frequencies simultaneously, performing in milliseconds the kind of threat analysis that older jamming systems required human operators to conduct manually, which in a modern operational environment where radar systems are designed to shift frequencies rapidly and adapt to countermeasures represents an enormous tactical advantage for any air force equipped with this level of autonomous electronic protection and attack capability during complex air operations. The second category of Israeli electronic warfare technology, attracting significant NATO procurement interest, involves directional infrared countermeasure systems, sophisticated platforms that protect rotary and fixed-wing aircraft not through the traditional method of releasing flares but through precisely directed infrared energy that interferes with the guidance systems of incoming threats before they can complete their tracking solution against the protected aircraft. Israeli engineers developed this technology over many years of operational research, refining it through continuous real-world feedback loops that allowed them to understand exactly how guidance systems behave under different atmospheric and operational conditions. producing a countermeasure platform that NATO evaluators consistently rate as more effective and more reliable than comparable systems produced by American or European manufacturers, which explains why multiple NATO air forces have selected Israeli-origin solutions for their fleet-wide aircraft self-protection modernization programs currently underway. The third system generating considerable quiet interest among NATO defense procurement officials is a category of ground-based electronic warfare equipment designed to monitor, analyze, and selectively disrupt radar and communication signals operating across a broad electromagnetic spectrum within a defined geographic area, providing ground commanders with the ability to shape the electronic environment of a battlefield in ways that degrade an adversary's situational awareness while preserving the functionality of friendly communication and sensor systems operating on protected frequencies. Israeli developers of these ground-based platforms have invested heavily in artificial intelligence integration, allowing the systems to continuously learn from the signals they detect, build increasingly detailed profiles of adversary electronic behavior over time, and make increasingly accurate and rapid decisions about when and how to respond. A level of autonomous electronic intelligence that European-manufactured alternatives have not yet matched in independent comparative evaluations. Naval forces operating within NATO's operational framework have also become significant customers for Israeli electronic warfare technology, particularly integrated ship protection suites that combine radar warning receivers, electronic countermeasures, and communication jamming capabilities into a single coherent system architecture that can be managed by a small crew in a shipboard combat management center without requiring the extensive specialized training that older generation naval electronic warfare systems demanded from their operators. Several NATO member navies operating in the Mediterranean and Baltic regions, areas where the density of adversarial radar and surveillance activity has increased measurably over the past decade, have selected Israeli naval EW suites for installation aboard new frigates and upgraded existing surface combatants, Cognizing that Israel's experience protecting naval vessels in some of the world's most electronically contested maritime environments gives its systems an inherent credibility that competitor products simply cannot match. As unmanned aerial systems have become an increasingly central element of NATO military operations across all domains, the vulnerability of drones to electronic interference has emerged as one of the most pressing operational challenges facing alliance planners, thus flating, and Israeli companies have developed a category of electronic warfare technology specifically designed to protect unmanned platforms from the frequency-based disruption techniques that adversaries have deployed with growing sophistication. Effectiveness in recent operational environments observed by NATO intelligence analysts. These drone protection systems work by combining frequency-hopping communication architectures with onboard electronic countermeasures that allow unmanned platforms to maintain their operational effectiveness even when operating in environments deliberately saturated with interference signals. And several NATO members investing heavily in drone-centric operational concepts have selected Israeli origin protection technology as the foundational layer of their unmanned system security architecture for this decade. Sixth category of Israeli electronic warfare technology that NATO procurement agencies have been evaluating with growing seriousness involves advanced battlefield communication intelligence platforms, systems specifically engineered to monitor, classify, and analyze the full spectrum of radio frequency communications operating within a defined operational zone, giving field commanders an unprecedented level of insight into adversary communication patterns, organizational structures, and operational intentions derived entirely from the electromagnetic natures that military units inevitably produce during routine and operational activity. Israeli developers of these communication intelligence platforms have built-in machine learning architectures that allow the systems to automatically distinguish between thousands of simultaneous signal sources, prioritize those of greatest intelligence value, and deliver actionable analytical outputs to commanders in formats designed for rapid decision-making. A capability combination that NATO signals intelligence specialists have repeatedly identified as superior to anything currently available from within the alliance's own industrial base. The seventh and arguably most strategically significant category of Israeli electronic warfare technology that NATO countries are incorporating into their defense architectures involves large-scale spectrum monitoring and signals intelligence, platforms that give military commanders a comprehensive real-time picture of all electromagnetic activity within a defined operational area, enabling a level of electronic situational awareness that fundamentally transforms how commanders understand the battlefield environment and make decisions about when and how to employ other electronic warfare assets at their disposal. These spectrum management systems have been developed by Israeli firms over decades of operational use by the IDF in environments requiring continuous monitoring of highly complex and rapidly changing electromagnetic landscapes, and NATO command structures evaluating options for alliance-wide electronic situational awareness have identified Israeli-developed systems in this category as the most mature, most capable, and most operationally validated solutions currently available anywhere on the global defense market. The pattern of NATO countries quietly acquiring Israeli electronic warfare systems across all 7 of these capability categories reveals something deeply important about how the world's most sophisticated defense establishments now understand the nature of future security challenges. And it reflects a growing consensus among military planners that dominance in the electromagnetic spectrum will be as decisive in future conflicts as dominance in the air or at sea was in the conflicts of the 20th century. Israel's emergence as the preferred supplier for this category of capability is not a political story or a diplomatic convenience. It is a technology story, driven entirely by decades of operational investment, real-world refinement, and an innovation culture that consistently produces systems performing above specification in the exact conditions under which NATO forces expect to operate in the years and decades ahead. If you found this analysis valuable and want to stay ahead of the defense technology trends that most mainstream media outlets are not covering with this level of depth and detail, then subscribing to this channel is the single most important step you can take right now, because we publish regular deep dive content on exactly these kinds of subjects. The technology shifts, procurement decisions, and strategic developments that quietly shape the security landscape long before they become widely understood. Share this video with anyone serious about understanding where modern defense technology is genuinely headed. Leave a comment below telling us which of these 7 systems you found most significant, and let us know what defense technology topic you want us to cover in depth next, because this community drives everything we research and produce.